So with that, I'd like to introduce Scott Solomon and Roy Takeshi. Guys, take it from here.
Thanks, Neil. This is Scott Solomon speaking, and I am, first of all, just wanting to thank the folks at cStor for the opportunity to join them on this webinar. We're all excited about the technology and the opportunity to bring solutions like this to really enable mobility, enable remote workforces in a way that's allowing your businesses to grow, to take advantage of technology, to help your employees do more, do it better, be more productive from anywhere. And so we're going to be talking today about solving remote force challenges. And in order to do so, we have to talk about applications. That's the most important thing that we want to think about when we're talking about remote workforce. It's about giving them access to the technologies, to the tools, to do their job effectively from anywhere. And in order to do that, they need application access. And so part of the challenge of application access today that maybe wasn't necessarily the case 5, 6, 7 years ago, those of you who have been doing this for a long time can probably relate to that, is the complexity and the diversity that we're seeing in the end user community. Used to be that we would hand somebody a corporate laptop, we would know exactly where they were connecting from because it was essentially just their home office, or we'd have a corporate-owned MiFi device where we would understand exactly what was going on and have a lot of control from a corporate environment. We'd know what they were connecting over because we had VPNs and dedicated circuits, and things have changed quite a bit, and now we don't really have the same level of control. And so we have all this device diversity out there, whether it's Chromebooks, and part of the challenge is visibility. When those applications are in the data center and you're connecting to local users, we have really good visibility. What happens when we extend that out to these remote employees? There's lots of challenges and lots of issues that can go along with that. I think I still need to be made mouse control again there.
Yep, we lost that too. Here you go, Scott. See if that works.
No worries. We're good. We plan on these things.
Absolutely.
And so one of the things that we need to identify when we're delivering and supporting these kind of apps is visibility into what the issue is. When a user complains, and if you're trying to deliver apps to remote users, at some point something's not going to work and somebody's going to complain. We have to understand, is the source of the problem in the application? Is it in the network? And that the experience that the user's having is just because of slow network. We have to deal with availability and reliability issues. We have to deal with complexity, and sometimes complexity is the biggest problem. We're managing so many different things that how do we get a handle on it to the degree that we eliminate that complexity from the end user. Complexity in the data center is one thing. Complexity from the end user perspective is a productivity killer, and we want to avoid that where at all possible. And so what Citrix is doing is putting a structured architecture together, combining our products together in a way that extends that perimeter out, extends that area where we have visibility, end-to-end visibility, extends that perimeter out to where things are highly available, and when users go to connect to an application, they can depend on and rely upon the fact that that application, that data is going to be there and it's going to perform as they expected. But we have to do that with simplicity for the end user, as I mentioned, and also security. One of the huge challenges that customers face is taking and giving all that access to end users so that they can have the productivity tools that we see everywhere, and yet to do so in a way that's secure. You have two important assets. The most important assets in any organization are your employees and your intellectual property. And so the challenge here is how to address both at the same time without compromising either one. And so that's why Citrix has something called the Workspace Delivery Platform. It's not a single product. It is the integration of a few different products that are designed to provide seamless access and end-to-end security for your end users. And I'm certainly not going to read the definition here, but a picture will help illustrate the point. Those of you that are familiar with Citrix are probably most familiar with XenApp and XenDesktop. These are the products that we've had for years and years and years, where we've delivered remote applications, remote desktops out to users on any device over any network. We've also had the Netscaler, an application delivery controller, and the Netscaler gateway for quite some time. This allowed access to those XenApp and XenDesktop applications. But as the variety of applications is extended and expanded, we needed to add and continue to innovate to this Workspace Delivery platform. And so we came up with the idea of this unified gateway concept. And the unified gateway concept, which we'll go into detail on in a moment, really provides value not just around XenApp and XenDesktop, but around many different kinds of applications. That being said, we don't want to minimize the benefit or the impact for XenApp and XenDesktop. And for those of you who may be not familiar with XenApp and XenDesktop, it is a feature-rich solution for delivery of Windows apps and desktops. And it's built on three pillars: experience, security, and flexibility. The experience is all about the user experience, making sure that when they run an application, a Windows application remotely, it has the same feel, the same look, the same quality to it that it would running natively on a local desktop. Security, I mentioned, but XenApp and XenDesktop is designed secure in its DNA because everything executes locally in the data center and all the user sees are screen images. Everything is secure by design. We don't have to have this fat VPN connection where data is going across. Even if it's encrypted, it provides an access point because ultimately that data is going to end up on a device. And if we don't have control over that device, we don't have control over that data. And then the flexibility to be able to deliver it in a hybrid cloud environment, to be able to deliver it on-site, on-premise, flexibility in terms of use cases. So all of these features have been part of XenApp and XenDesktop for some time now. And so what we're doing with the Workspace Delivery platform is building on those key platforms, those key feature sets, and adding value, and even beyond XenApp and XenDesktop. And so when it comes to the user experience, when it comes to security, and when it comes to management, we add value. Those are still the three areas that have to be addressed when you're talking about just the XenApp and XenDesktop delivery or delivery of any kind of application. So let's just take a second or two on each one of these and talk a little bit more. Most of the time when we're trying to deliver applications out to end users, we do it piecemeal. It's this application, oh, let's give this out, or this application. And so there's not a cohesive strategy that really lends itself to simplicity. So as we start to add applications, and typically it's not just one application, it's many, many applications. And so each of these applications requires a different method of access for the end user. And so it adds complexity. It's hard to manage and it's expensive. Just managing IP addresses and public URLs and this portal for that and this portal for the other thing. The users, the complicated user experience of where do I go to get to things? I go here for this app, I go this other place for this other app. And so it's very much of a learning curve for the typical end user, and it can also result in data center sprawl. So how do we solve that? Well, Unified Gateway takes all of those diverse portals, combines them into a single portal so that all of your remote applications, whether they're web applications, enterprise applications, SaaS applications, or XenApp and XenDesktop applications, can be consolidated and accessed through one portal. So that's roughly a 5-to-1 consolidation. In many cases, much more than that. Improves the user experience by giving them one URL to understand, one login, because we can federate login access to these other applications. And so it's very simplified access for the end user. It's a much better experience. And then even once they connect, they're connecting sometimes over shaky connections. I mean, we see all the commercials and, this Verizon network's better than T-Mobile, all the commercials that we laugh at. But it's a real challenge to effectively deliver applications, especially ones that, just think of PowerPoint. Think of the graphics that are involved just in doing this presentation and some of the issues that we're seeing. And I'm on a hotel Wi-Fi network. Imagine trying to do this if I were trying to run this over my 4G network, how much more challenging this would be. And so we have a technology called FrameHawk that we've had for a couple of years now built into XenApp and XenDesktop that's designed specifically around the user experience with delivering those applications. This is now fully integrated and fully supported end-to-end through the unified gateway and through the Netscaler, so improving on the user experience. When it comes to security, again, the two big things are security and the user experience, right? We have something called Smart Control. Now, if you have some level of familiarity, again, with XenApp and XenDesktop, which I don't want to necessarily assume, we've had a solution in place called Smart Access. This is something that allows you to understand through an endpoint scan the context in which someone's working. In other words, when someone's at home working on a secured Wi-Fi network on a corporate-owned device is different than when they're working at a kiosk or in a public Wi-Fi area. And so to coincide with that, we need to adopt different policies as to what they can or cannot do. What about attaching to a local printer or copy and paste access? Things that you would say they should be able to do maybe when they're in a known environment, but when they're in an unknown environment, probably not. And so we have Smart Control that moves that and allows for that application of those security policies right at the gateway. So we can control all of these different things without ever having to allow the user to connect to the server. So from a security standpoint, a huge, huge thing. The other thing we have is end-factor authentication. Just like you want to adopt different policies for different contexts, you want to have some more flexibility over just authentication, period. If you're dealing with client certificates or two-factor authentication, instead of just having a flat structure where everybody's lumped into the same category, this allows us to look at who is connecting in, what kind of security context we need to apply, and have a nested authentication so that if they fail one check where they don't have a valid client certificate, maybe we require two-factor authentication. Or if they're part of a particular Active Directory group, maybe we require two-factor or maybe one-factor authentication if that group doesn't have access to very much confidential information. Lastly, from a management perspective, this is critical. If we do our great job, get all this stuff going out to everybody, solve security, solve the user experience, but we have no idea what's happening, we're really not solving the problem because, as I mentioned earlier, inevitably there's going to be an issue. Inevitably someone's going to have some kind of problem that we need to solve. And to answer that, we have the Netscaler Insight Center. Now, we've had that for some time. It integrates with the administrative console, the help desk console of XenApp, XenDesktop called Director. And what it did is it provided insight to HDX, which is the Citrix protocol, so that we can see if someone's complaining about a Citrix-delivered application. Is it the application? Is it the network? Maybe the profile's taking a long time to load. It also provided the same kind of information from the web application. So if we're load balancing Microsoft Exchange, for example, we get to see what's happening from that Outlook web access, that front end, and provide context for that. Our WAN products, our WAN virtualization products like SD-WAN, which bonds and provides a virtual connection across multiple different WAN links, provides another layer of information so that we can see what's happening with the wide area network if this application is not performing well. So all of these combined give us a high degree of insight into what's happening with the user experience, reduces the time to resolution, and helps solve problems quickly and avoids finger pointing. But we've also added something new, and that is a gateway insight. And this provides even more information around that authentication, that login, that gateway, what browser's being used, how are they being authenticated. So it just continues to add more and more visibility to what's happening as we're delivering applications out to the end user. And that is a critical component in any organization strategy. So the last thing I want to talk about today before I hand it over to Roy is just some examples of some use cases. We saw earlier the graphic with the unified gateway, but realistically, what kinds of applications can we deliver with this solution? Well, if we look at this first use case, it's all about web and enterprise legacy applications. And some of this is not just exclusive to the unified gateway. I want to point out that there's other components that are needed for this. But think of front-end applications and custom enterprise applications. How many different versions of Internet Explorer can someone have to maintain and figure out? Well, combining the unified gateway with something that we have, either secure browser, which is a cloud-based service, or running that on-premise through XenApp, we can allow for a variety of different compatibility issues for different enterprise apps, so that if you're not ready to move on to the next version and you have to maintain an older browser that's not supported with newer technology, we enable you to do that. We can help optimize and make highly available enterprise applications through load balancing, or provide access to our clientless VPN so that users can connect more simply into the network without having to have a Cisco AnyConnect. That's extremely helpful when it comes to contractors or people that you need to have access that are not full-time employees. The second use case I spent already a fair amount of time talking about, and that's adding value to XenApp and XenDesktop. And I talked about the contextual security and being able to support the frame hawk. So this is another huge use case. I won't go into any more detail there. There's tons of material, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody about the Citrix, front-ending Citrix all day long. The third use case we're going to talk about is cloud and SaaS applications. And one of the cool things is the security component built into Netscaler and our ability to support various degrees of federated access, whether it's SAML or OAuth, things where you have a contractor that might have an application that's a SaaS application that we can use Netscaler to verify the identity, to extend that security out. Things like Office 365, things like Azure Active Directory, all of these different points of integration where it's not the same technology used for security, being able to aggregate that, centralize that, so that, guess what, the end user doesn't have to worry about it. They have one login, they log in, and they get access and federated access to everything. Plus, with the Gateway Insight, we can see what's happening, so that if you have a cloud application with a particular SLA, you can see very quickly whether or not you need to get on the phone and complain about that SLA not being met, or if it's a different issue. And the last use case we're going to talk about is Zen Mobile. Zen Mobile is a big deal, and there's a lot of things happening, so stay tuned for some stuff that's going to be on the horizon. But the gateway is the foundational piece of our micro VPN access, which allows those native mobile apps to connect to the network on an application-by-application basis. That way you don't have to expose the entire device. So it opens up a world of opportunities with the mobility, and you'll see that or hear that in a bit when Roy goes into some detail on the case study that we're going to present to you. And so with that, I am going to pass the baton, and I'm going to let Roy give you some information on a specific case study that fits into all of these scenarios.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Roy Takeshi. I'm a principal sales engineer with Citrix Systems. And the case study that we're going to look at today is the Miami Marlins. The Miami Marlins had recently built a new stadium in Miami, Florida. And they went through, they were going through some growing pains because of that move. Traditionally, if you are buying season tickets, you're going through some sort of sponsorship motion with a professional sports team. It's really tied with the visceral experience of being there at the stadium, to be able to walk down the aisle and sit down in a particular seat before you make that investment in buying tickets for that seat for an entire season. You want to know where you're at in the stadium, what it's going to be like, what the view of the field is going to look like. And when the stadium is not built yet, or if you don't have access to that particular location, it really changes the entire customer experience. But what the Miami Marlins did is that they were able to present a 3D graphical view of the entire stadium from any place in the stadium, whether or not it was a seat behind the dugout or out on the third base line or in the outfield or even from one of the boxes, the luxury boxes, you were able to see exactly what it was going to look like to be there at the game and look at that field, all from a 3D rendering from an application. And being able to access that from through Citrix and Desktop and ZenApp, they were able to they were not only able to solve the problem of not having the field built yet, but also to change the way that they work, where the sales reps were able to go out to the field and go out to where the customers were, and to be able to show the customers through a 3D representation from a mobile device or a PC or a laptop or whatever device that they chose in order to take a look at what that experience would be. So they were able to change the way that they work. And we can do this for a wide number of verticals as well. So if you're able to take a look at the case study in the video and kind of see what their experience was as a customer to use Citrix technologies. But to give you an idea, we have customers in the hospitality industry, changing the way that their reps are engaging with the customers as they check into the hotel, in healthcare, with practitioners being able to access patient data securely from the bedside, or as they're walking around engaging with patients without having to take notes and then carry it back and forth back to a data entry location, and to be able to have the latest and best information when for an engineering firm, being able to look exactly at a plan or being able to modify a plan while you're at the site. So there's a wide variety of ways that as a customer, either that you can provide better usability and access to data in a secure fashion from any device, anywhere, and regardless of the way the network operates. And we can help you leverage either personal or corporate devices, or extend the life of corporate devices just by changing the way that you work on a day-to-day basis. So I guess that kind of takes us into our Q&A portion, correct?
It does. Thank you so much, Roy, and to Scott for a great session, very timely and informative. At this time, we will open it up for questions. As a reminder, if you have any questions about today's session, please post them to the questions pane in the GoToWebinar control panel. Looks like someone was having a few challenges with your audio, so I'm just noting that. And as a reminder, we mentioned earlier, we did record the session. So if you can check out the recording of the session, if you had problems with your audio as well today, definitely look for that recording link following the event. We usually send that out within a day or so. All right, on to the questions. And we do have a few, and we've got a few minutes to take them, so excellent. Okay, question one. How is the unified gateway different than the regular Netscaler gateway? Scott or Roy?
That's a good question. Yeah. So the unified gateway builds on what we had already in the Netscaler gateway. If you're familiar with the Netscaler gateway, it was where users would be able to connect to, and was specifically designed to give them access to the ZenApp and ZenDesktop technologies. So what we've done is we've added another layer to that, which is called content switching, and that allows us to expand the function of the gateway out to these other applications and give us a much more wide variety of applications, and that's the unified gateway, and they work hand in hand together.
Excellent, thank you so much. A couple more questions, we'll squeeze them in. If I want the unified gateway feature and regular Netscaler load balancing, do I need to have separate devices?
No, not necessarily. Depending on the architecture and the size of the environment, it might be a good idea to have multiple appliances, but the unified gateway is a feature that is available as part of the full Netscaler suite. So all the load balancing and application delivery functionality, that's all part of it, so that can all be on a single appliance.
Excellent. And we'll squeeze one more question in. We're right at the 10:30 mark Pacific. But final question, does the Unified Gateway support full VPN access?
Yes, again, that's a similar function that we had in the Netscaler gateway, and so we didn't have any sample login screens, but you would see when you logged into the front page of the Netscaler gateway, you're given 3 options to go with a clientless web-based access, to go with the receiver for web access, and then a full VPN client. So it's not typically marketed as a replacement for an Edge VPN solution, but it's more than capable in that area and does provide full VPN access. Unlike the other 2 options, it does require a VPN client to be installed that goes with the Unified Gateway and the Netscaler.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That concludes our questions for today. Thank you to our guest speakers again for some excellent and very timely information.